Last night, one Nunavut male passed away due to COVID-19.
Tonight, Nunavut records its first death in the Omicron wave.
Vince is somebody whose life and legacy had a tremendous reach in the community, and that will live on.
Friends, family, and fans gather by the hundreds to say farewell to Vince Fontaine.
We've asked them to prove it, and clearly they can.
We keep getting new members who are signing statutory declarations now.
And will the real chief please stand up? Two groups claim leadership of one band. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Nunavut continues to suffer under the Omicron wave of COVID-19. And now the territory has hit a dark milestone in this latest outbreak. Here's Ken Driscoll with more.
Nunavut's premier had bad news for Nunavut today. Nunavut's first death from COVID-19 since the Omicron wave hit.
I am very saddened to begin this announcement on a somber note. Last night, one Nunavut male passed away due to COVID-19. This is our first casualty in this wave. So my thoughts are with the family and the community. As of this morning, Nunavut has 177 positive cases of COVID-19.
There was a bright spot for Nunavut's understaffed healthcare system. The federal government has been quick to offer supplies, but Nunavut needed health professionals. Now, some of those are coming too.
The federal government has provided Nunavut with 3 additional nurses, all with previous experiences working in Nunavut, and 9 contact tracers. These are Statistics Canada employees.
There have been major changes to Nunavut's COVID response in the last week. Teachers are back at school, preparing for full classes to return next week in communities with few or no cases. For communities that do have cases, 50% class size and half the work will be done from home. Lab testing is caught up, so now lab tests are reported as soon as they're received. More good news? This about the elders at the Embassy West Care Facility in Ottawa.
I'm happy to report that all Nunavut elders who were diagnosed with COVID-19 at Embassy West have recovered from the virus. As of yesterday, there were 4 essential caregivers from Nunavut at Embassy West, along with 2 family members who live in Ottawa, providing assistance with essential care.
There are active COVID-19 cases in 17 of Nunavut's 25 communities, and recent reductions in testing capacity mean that number is most likely higher. This first death of the Omicron wave means that for Nunavut, this outbreak is far from over. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
In Ottawa, it has dominated political discussion for more than a week now. Quebec's proposed tax on the unvaccinated. And what do federal leaders think? On Tuesday, it was NDP leader Jagmeet Singh's turn to answer the question. APTN's Fraser Needham has that story.
Quebec Premier Francois Legault's tax on the unvaxxed has been creating a lot of buzz. The federal government faced questions on Quebec's proposed tax last week. The Prime Minister was non-committal, but didn't rule it out.
Obviously, like people across the country, we've received that proposal with interest by the Quebec government, but there's a lot more details that we have to hear on how this would work.
At the same time, Health Minister Jean-Yves Duclos said forcing people to get vaccinated against their will is not a road the Liberals are willing to go down.
No one, I believe, is thinking or certainly speaking of forcibly physically vaccinating people in Canada. What we have done at the federal level is to put into place vaccine mandates that do work around borders, around transportation, air and train.
Canada's NDP leader was asked the question on Tuesday, and this is what he had to say.
I am, though, deeply concerned about the proposal which would undermine the universality of our healthcare system. That, to me, is deeply concerning, making people pay because of their health choices is something that would undermine our healthcare universality and that the nature of it being there for everyone when they need it.
This past weekend in Winnipeg for beloved musician Vince Fontaine. Many people came out to show their support for the Fontaine family. Maybe too many people. Our Daryl Stranger has more.
Vince Fontaine died suddenly last week following a heart attack, and on Sunday, Manitobans came out to pay their respects. A celebration of life was held at Winnipeg's Odennis Circle. Fontaine was a Juno Award-winning artist from Sagkeeng First Nation. His niece and NDP MLA Nahanni Fontaine thanked those that came to honor Vince.
Thank you for everybody that came here today, and thank you for showing up for Vince. Vince would want us to connect with one another through music, through community, through compassion, through caring, and ultimately he would want us to connect with one another through love.
With many people paying their respects, it caught the attention of Manitoba government officials. Manitoba's current health restrictions state the maximum number of people outdoors is 50 if there is one or more unvaccinated people, or 250 if everyone is fully immunized. It was unclear if vaccination statuses were being checked or how many people attended. We reached out to Nahanni Fontaine and the Manitoba NDP, but they were unavailable for comment. Last week, NDP leader Wab Kinew said about the gathering he supports his colleague and the Fontaine family.
I support my dear colleague Nahanni Fontaine and her family who are grieving at this time, and I know Vince is somebody whose life and legacy had a tremendous reach in the community, and that will live on, and it's important that the family and the community have an outlet for the grief that they feel.
Manitoba Justice is looking into it. Manitoba Justice was aware of the event, and as with previous events, officials were monitoring and gathering evidence. Manitoba's current numbers show over 40,000 active cases and 588 hospitalizations, 46 of which are in ICU. Back at the Forks, the crowd enjoyed a number of performances to honor the late Fontaine.
Believe with us and we will show us a eagle and hawk, they share my blood. Their souls rain down from my papa.
A GoFundMe has been created and has raised over $18,000 to help Vince's wife and 3 children with burial costs. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We'd like to hear what you think about this or any other story you see here. Here's how you can get in touch with us. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca or leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Gone, but not forgotten. That was the message at a vigil held in Montreal today in honor of Raphael Andre. Lindsay Richardson brings us an update on what's changed and what hasn't since Andre's body was recovered from a chemical toilet last January.
A prayer in Innu, live-streamed from Montreal directly to Matimakush Lac John, so Raphael Andre's parents know he's remembered 1 year after his passing.
J'ose même pas imaginer, il y a 1 an, de la façon comment il est décédé.
Last January, Raphael Andre's body was recovered from a porta potty on the other side of town. At the time, officials promised never again. But today, those manning the warming tent named for Napa say the need is only growing.
C'est sûr qu'on a toujours besoin de d'autres sources. Tu sais, on peut pas être les seuls ici sans avoir personne aux alentours. Mais je suis quand même contente de savoir que ça commence à débloquer.
The tent has enough money to run until the end of March, but ideally,
I think that we need a permanent solution. Like this is great for 16 people at night, but it's really, really cold. So people who show up tonight are going to have to bear this throughout the night.
Despite Montreal Mayor Valérie Plante qualifying Napa's death as one too many, his was not the last. A few weeks back, an elderly Inuk was found dead at a construction site across from the warming tent. More recently, an elderly man was found dead in a tent under a main city overpass. The situation is urgent, according to the AFNQL's regional chief, Ghislain Picard.
We shouldn't be waiting for another tragic event to happen before we come together. We often say that Indigenous issues should not be partisan issues. It should be issues of human rights and bringing all parties together.
One holdout is the coroner's report examining Napa's death. The recommendations are still in the works 1 year later. We asked the Coroner's Bureau for an update on its release, but did not receive a response before deadline. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
It's conflict familiar to many Indigenous people, land preservation versus economic development. Is there a balance to be found? A new upcoming series by Shushan Bacon and Tom Fenario explores this theme. Here's a quick peek.
Ernie Moses is what the Cree in Quebec call a tally man, meaning he's the one that looks after his family's trap line. It also means he passes on his knowledge of the land to the generations to come, just as it was passed on to him. But Moses' trapline is located on rare earth metals essential for electric car batteries. Mining will begin as soon as summer 2022. The project will create hundreds of jobs and is just one of many on Cree land poised to create an economic boom. But at what cost?
We can't go hunting over there for about 25 or 20 years, about around there.
A two-part series starting soon on APTN National News.
Welcome back. The tragic house fire in Sandy Lake First Nation is renewing calls for fire safety on remote First Nations. Saul Mamakwa is the MPP for Kawetanong, the riding that includes Sandy Lake First Nation. Saul, thanks so much for being with us here.
Miigwech for having me.
Fire services on reserve are primarily a federal responsibility, but what's your message for the province of Ontario in light of this tragedy?
It's very important that we understand we cannot use jurisdiction as an excuse when we talk about the health and the lives of children dying on reserve because of because of house fires. It's important that we understand that.
How would you describe the state of firefighting services on First Nations that you serve, and how does that impact the survivability of reserve fires?
I think when we talk about the strategic underfunding, the underfunding of access to fire halls, fire equipment, fire trucks, lack of training, this is not by accident. It's the oppressive, the colonial systems that are there are continuing to be happening, and that's one of them is when we talk about it. And I think we cannot continue that route of whereby we are complacent, whereby Indigenous children are continuing to die in our communities, and we cannot look away. We cannot use jurisdiction as an excuse, and I think the province needs to be part of the solution, whereby they work with the federal government, they work with First Nations leadership, and to come up with a solution that is multi-pronged approach to addressing this issue, so we don't lose any more children, Indigenous children.
So it seems like we have something like this happen almost every winter. What needs to happen in order to increase firefighting capacity on First Nations?
I think we just need to be able to listen and hear what the First Nations need. There's been reports done before. We need to be able to look at the fire safety awareness education campaigns that are happening. We need to have a standardized service delivery model that that will work for the First Nations. It's got to be Indigenous driven. It's got to be led by the First Nations, and both levels of government need to be able to respond and provide the resources to be able to do that.
It's all such a tragedy. Appreciate you taking some time to speak with us about this today.
Miigwech for having me.
Pappas First Nation in Edmonton lost their land in 1889. For over a decade, their chief has been trying to get the band recognized by the federal government. But a second group with their own chief in council claim they are the rightful descendants and also want recognition. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
Chief Calvin Bruno has represented Pappas Chase First Nation for over a decade. He represents a band without a home. He says starvation forced members to give up land claims for money. In 1889, their land was gone, sold to settlers by the federal government. Members joined the nearby Enoch Cree Nation and other reserves. Bruno has been trying to get recognized by the federal government in hopes of reclaiming their land. But a second group formed in 2019 who call themselves Pappas Chase First Nation No. 136 Association.
And we've been dealing with a group that purports to be descendants, and we've asked them to prove it, and clearly they can't. And so we're basically the legitimate group that's been going forward and representing Pappas Chase descendants for over 20 years now here in Edmonton and beyond. And I've been the chief for the last 10 years plus.
Well, I hope so. I hope that
Chief Darling Missick represents Pappas Chase First Nation. Missick says her group has over 1,200 members. She was elected chief alongside a council in 2021 and says she is helping members prove that they are rightful descendants.
we keep getting new members who are signing statutory declarations. Now, our membership has 2 years to verify their genealogical descendancy. We are looking at hiring people to do that work for us, but at this point we simply don't have the funding to do it or the resources. But we do refer people to the various genealogical associations, credible organizations that can do this work.
Chief Bruno says the group is causing confusion with now having 2 voices instead of 1.
We're trying to rebuild our nation, and we're trying to develop relationships, and we're trying to bring back our people. And then when you got a group like this coming up and claiming to be who we are, then basically that causes a lot of confusion amongst people. And so, but the thing is, they don't have the background. You know, they only popped up in the last couple of years and basically trying to take credit for my work.
There have been lawsuits on both sides. In April of 2021, a federal judge dismissed Pappas Chase 136 lawsuit against the Crown asking for recognition and compensation. Missick says they have appealed the decision. She says she is open to resolve the situation with Chief Bruno.
We would like to. Of course, it's always open. We're always open to discussion. And one thing that we did say to him is that, you know, let's meet, discuss the concern, and have another election. Let's do that. And it was just point blank. We don't hear you. You don't exist. Get out of our way. So you start wondering, well, you know, you can't just walk by yourself on your own and do things and not have engagement with your members. I mean, you have to engage with your members, even those who disagree with you.
Indigenous Services Canada has not responded to APTN's inquiries. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
A popular tourism destination in the Northwest Territories is opening their doors to new guests. But this time it's those experiencing homelessness and battling addictions. Our reporter Charlotte Mort-Jacobs has a preview.
You know, this is a place to really connect with Nunavut and be on Mother Earth and get grounded.
It's the type of model elders in the Northwest Territories have suggested all along. This week on APTN National News, we'll check out Dene Nation's new on-the-land healing camp.
We've all known each other on the streets. It's very amazing what you see out here, the differences we've all made here.
These folks were homeless in Yellowknife only a few weeks ago. Now, they're getting round-the-clock help they need, with traditional practices and a managed substance program.
Like, we all have different jobs out here, and we're all like having self-worth again, self-respect again.
That's coming up this week on APTN National News.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Our viewer Melanie Van Dam sent us this great photo of some swans. I'm not sure where she was able to catch these two, but when we saw the picture, it reminded us of Valentine's Day, which is just around the corner. Interestingly enough, swans pair up for life. Be sure to send us your photos to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, -4 with flurries in Halifax, 9 below in Charlottetown, 26 below with the sun out in Kuujjuaq, snow, and -24 for Nain. -7 in Montreal, 20 below in Chibougamau. -8 with snow in Sault Ste. Marie, snow, and -1 in North Bay. -3 with snow for Thunder Bay, 14 below, and snow in Sioux Lookout. -16 for Churchill, 27 below in God's Lake. 18 below with snow in Winnipeg, -20 and flurries in Dauphin. -22 in Regina, 23 below for Saskatoon. -21 in Meadow Lake, 22 below in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, sun's out and -20 for Fort McMurray, 21 below in Grand Prairie. -14 sun in Medicine Hat, 10 below and sunny in Lethbridge. +9 with showers for Vancouver and Victoria. -4 and snow for Prince George, -3 in Smithers. 23 below with snow in Old Crow, snow, and -10 in Whitehorse. -23 for Yellowknife, 32 below in Norman Wells. -30 and snow in Sax Harbor, snow, and -22 for Paulatuck. -28 in Whale Cove, Baker Lake, and Cambridge Bay. -30 in Resolute and Arctic Bay. Cindy Blackstock has been locked into a decades-long battle with the federal government in an effort to achieve equity for First Nations children. During that time, she has been spied on, had funding cut to her organization, and more. Blackstock is our guest tonight on Face to Face. She says the governments need to stop politicizing the lives of First Nations children.
A First Nations child doesn't know that the federal government and the provincial government are playing these kinds of games that are denying them the opportunities to grow up and healthy and proud. They just know that life's a lot harder for them than it is for other kids. And so they do what kids will naturally do, which is they take it inside. They start to believe that they're not good enough, that they're not smart enough. And then we see these terrible rates of suicide in our communities. That is the reality of this kind of political showmanship. And that's why we really need to tame politics when it comes to kids.
And you can catch our entire interview with Cindy Blackstock on Face to Face in less than 2 minutes' time. That is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For news anytime, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca, or download the APTN News app. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Time for In Focus. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night.